Jude was the boy everyone pitied or mocked. He was the one who sat at the back of the classroom, staring blankly at the blackboard while the teacher's words buzzed around him like a swarm of bees. No matter how hard he tried, the numbers never made sense. The letters blurred together. The formulas were like riddles meant for minds sharper than his. "Jude, solve the equation on the board," the teacher would say. His classmates would giggle before he even stood up because they already knew what would happen. He would freeze, his mind blank, his hands clammy. The teacher would sigh, the boys would laugh, the girls would shake their heads in pity. By the time he was 12, his nickname was already sealed. Dull Jude. "That boy will never amount to anything," the village elders would say. "He's just wasting his father's money," his teachers muttered. "Can't even count change properly," the market women whispered. His father, once patient, grew tired. "Jude," he said one evening after another failed test, "if school isn't for you, at least learn a trade. Find something, anything, useful to do with your hands." Those words, though spoken with frustration, became a seed in Jude's mind. If his hands were all he had, then he would use them, and he would prove them all wrong. Jude had always been different, but not in the way people thought. He wasn't stupid. He wasn't lazy. His mind just worked differently. While his classmates memorized history dates, Jude memorized the way the blacksmith's bellows worked. While they solved equations, he took apart broken radios to understand their wiring. While they read about farming techniques, he sat with the village mechanic, watching how engines roared to life. Everywhere he went, he observed. Every spare moment, he experimented. He built tiny machines from scraps, useless little things at first. A toy that moved when the wind blew, a broken clock that he somehow made tick again, a lantern that stayed lit longer than any other in the village. Nobody cared. Until the drought came. The village had always depended on a small stream that flowed from the hills, but that year, the rains betrayed them. The stream dried up. The land cracked. The crops withered. Women walked miles every morning to fetch water from a distant river. The children, Jude included, had to carry heavy pots on their heads, trekking under the scorching sun. People whispered of leaving the village. The village could not survive like this. That was when Jude had an idea. He had watched how wells were dug. He had seen how old pumps worked. But what if, just what if, he could build something that didn't need people to pump water manually? Something stronger. Something faster. Something better. Nobody believed in him, of course. "Jude, you can't even pass a simple test. What do you know about wells and pumps?" Jude didn't argue. He didn't beg them to believe. He simply worked. Day and night, he gathered scraps, old pipes, broken bicycle chains, rusted gears. He sketched designs on the ground with a stick. He failed, again and again. But Jude had never been one to quit. One morning, the village woke up to an unusual sound, the sound of rushing water. People ran to the dry well in the center of the village. And there, standing beside it, covered in sweat and dirt, was Jude. He had done it. He had built a water pump, one that didn't need people to push and pull. Instead, it used the wind. The very air that had once mocked him by carrying away his torn exam papers now powered his machine. The windmill-driven pump pulled water from deep underground, pouring life back into the village. Silence fell over the crowd. The same boys who had once laughed at him stared in disbelief. The teachers who had written him off as hopeless stood with mouths slightly open. The elders who had called him a waste of space now murmured amongst themselves. And his father, the man who had all but given up on him, placed a hand on his shoulder. For the first time in Jude's life, he saw pride in his father's eyes. Jude's invention changed everything. The village no longer suffered for water. People from neighboring communities came to see the boy who built a machine from nothing. Word spread. A journalist came. Then an engineer. Then a businessman. They didn't see dull Jude. They saw a genius. Opportunities opened, scholarships, mentorships, funding for bigger projects. And suddenly, the boy who couldn't solve a classroom equation was solving real-world problems. One evening, as he stood beside his windmill, watching it turn gracefully in the evening breeze, a group of children ran past, playing. Jude overheard one of them say, "One day, I want to be like him." He smiled. The same village that once called him a failure now spoke his name with admiration. And Jude. He had never needed their approval. But proving them wrong? That was sweeter than anything. Not everyone learns the same way. Not everyone follows the same path. But brilliance isn't measured by test scores. It's measured by the courage to keep going, even when the world calls you a failure.